Hey guys, welcome back to Small Doses of Insight. I'm going to be doing something a little bit different today, so buckle up bros, because instead of the usual K-drama analysis, Culinary Class Wars on Netflix is taking tension to a whole new level, spicing up your typical class struggle narrative with gourmet food, unrestrained ambition, and cutthroat competition. It's like Squid Game met MasterChef but decided to serve it in a white tablecloth Michelin-starred restaurant where even the knives are out for everyone involved. It's the closest thing I've seen to a live-action Shokugeki no Soma. Shout out to the comic book chef, by the way. Imagine if Gordon Ramsay dialed down on the swearing but turned up the high-stakes psychology. The class drama here isn't just a subplot, it's the whole seasoning garnished with personal ambition and social commentary. I'll try to put aside my biases for this one, looking at you Chef Edward Lee and Triple Star. Culinary Class Wars, I'm just gonna go ahead and abbreviate it CCW from now on, is set up as a showdown between two chef classes, the White Spoons and the Black Spoons. White Spoons are the top dogs, highly experienced chefs with Michelin-starred restaurants, culinary empires, and enough ego to fill a stadium. They're the untouchables of the culinary world, like Choi Hyun-suk, who's considered Korea's most famous celebrity chef. Then there are the Black Spoons, the underdogs, chefs who might be self-taught, street vendors, or hidden talents who've never got a shot at the big leagues. Guys like the cooking maniac, who's absolutely crazy and hyper-focused when it comes to cooking, represent the dreamer who doesn't have the fancy background but packs a serious punch in the kitchen. This setup creates tension. It's all about hierarchy. On one hand, the White Spoons cling to their established status while the Black Spoons have ambition that's practically foaming at the mouth. The Black Spoons want what the White Spoons have: the prestige, the power, and the ability to tell other people to add more salt without getting questioned. So at its core, it's a struggle between the hungry and the comfortably full, a perfect recipe for conflict. If ambition were a spice, this show's kitchen would be drowning in it. Every chef comes in with a personal story, usually wrapped around a giant chip on their shoulder. The Black Spoons are hell-bent on proving they're just as talented as the White Spoons. We're talking extreme lengths here, like Napoli Mafia, a Black Spoon, creating a tiramisu that had the judges thinking they were having it at a fancy, expensive hotel. For the White Spoons though, ambition has a different flavor. They're not just looking to win, they're defending their legacy. White Spoon chef Jung Ji-sun, known as the Queen of Dim Sum, doesn't just want to beat the Black Spoons. She wants to crush any thought that someone with less experience could ever surpass her. The competition is set up to test these ambitions mercilessly. For example, each episode features team and individual challenges that take classic Korean concepts and demand these chefs twist it into something fresh and dazzling. It's like watching gladiators fight, except with sushi knives and blowtorches. The stakes? A grand prize of 300 million won, about 250 USD, and of course, bragging rights over an entire industry. And let's be real, 250 grand is nice, but it's the validation that these chefs are truly after. There's a lot of psychology going on in this kitchen, bro. The pressure cooker, literally, builds up, especially during those brutal team rounds. When the White Spoons and Black Spoons go head to head, you can feel the tension boil over. In one episode, Chef Choi Ji-hyun, a White Spoon with a flair for North Korean fine dining, was pitted against Triple Star, a Black Spoon who's worked in Michelin-starred restaurants but is still seen as a challenger. Their clashing cooking philosophies turned into a full-on showdown where every little action was analyzed and critiqued by the judges like it was the culinary Super Bowl. And that's where the tension lies. Every detail matters, and each move is a way of saying, I'm better than you. This isn't just ambition, it's ego on display. For chefs, ego and ambition are often inseparable. The kitchen is one place where the hierarchy hits hard because cooking is personal. It's about style, experience, and cultural expression, and CCW taps into that by making the chefs feel every small defeat deeply. When a judge like Chef Pike Jong-won criticizes a dish, it's not just a note to improve, it's a public calling out, a reminder of who's on top and who's clawing to get there. The show uses food as a proxy for class warfare. If you think about it, the White Spoons and Black Spoons represent the structured caste system of the culinary world. The White Spoons embody privilege, such as access to high-end ingredients, culinary training, and global experience, while the Black Spoons symbolize struggle, creativity born from limitations, and the hustle of those trying to break into an elite circle. There's a profound irony here. The White Spoons judge the Black Spoons for lacking sophistication, but the Black Spoons often innovate the most because they have to make do with less. It's classic bootstrapping, baby. One of the most brutal episodes involved a convenience store challenge. Black Spoon chef Napoli Mafia had to use inexpensive, readily available ingredients to create something that could blow the White Spoons away. He crafted a tiramisu using chestnut paste, an ingredient you'd never find in high-end restaurants, and nailed it. The The white spoons, on the other hand, struggled because they're so used to premium ingredients that cooking with basics was almost beneath them. This twist doesn't just create drama, it exposes the rigidity of class privilege and how it can actually limit creativity. Here's why CCW works. It's not just a cooking show. It's a masterclass in psychology, especially the kind that deals with ambition, social hierarchy, and personal worth. We're seeing people fight for more than a title. They're fighting for dignity, respect, and yes, to rub their wins in the faces of those who doubted them. And man, who doesn't love a good underdog story? Watching a black spoon outcook a white spoon feels like a victory for every person who's been told they can't make it. But make no mistake, the white spoons are entertaining in their own right. They embody the privileged class that's blind to its own entitlement. When a white spoon loses, the cognitive dissonance is hilarious. They're so used to being on top that failure isn't an option in their minds, which makes their losses epic and meme-worthy. It's a reminder that sometimes the most dangerous person in the room is the one with nothing to lose. Alright, let's dig into the psyche here because CCW doesn't just bring the drama. It messes with your head in ways you wouldn't expect from a food competition show. When you boil it down, no pun intended, the show's deeper psychological themes hit hard, especially the tension between status and ambition. Watching it, you're reminded of those high-stakes moments in life when your dreams and your position in the social ladder just don't line up. But fair warning, some parts of this reflection might hit a little close to home. It's about the fear of never making it, that itch of ambition that can keep you up at night, and the weird comfort we find in social labels, even as they hold us back. First off, let's talk about what this show says about self-worth. Watching the black spoons get relentlessly judged for things outside their control, such as lack of high-end experience, access to premium ingredients, and 0 Michelin stars, was brutal. But the deeper takeaway is that even if we knew social structures can be unfair, people crave the validation that only those structures can provide. The black spoons are ambitious and talented, but you see how not being able to claim that prestige wears on them. It's kind of like imposter syndrome that pops up when you're in a new environment. You're fully aware of what you bring to the table, but the context around you makes you question it. From a psychological perspective, we're dealing with what researchers called social comparison theory, which is fancy speak for a constant weighing of ourselves against those around us. This has a nasty way of influencing even the strongest among us. The black spoons start out just hungry for recognition, but are quickly cornered into self-doubt and defensiveness. You can see how it affects them under the pressure of these competitions where every mistake, big or small, is a blow to their sense of belonging in this elite group. Now, let's talk about ambition because in CCW, it's both the fuel and the poison. Every chef in this show is ambitious as hell, but their ambition often backfires, sabotaging them more than their opponents do. The white spoons, for instance, are so blinded by their ambition to maintain status that they sometimes ignore creativity or adaptability, sticking to methods and recipes they're comfortable with. Psychologically, this isn't unusual. It's a classic case of over-identification with success where we become so tied to our achievements that failure becomes unthinkable. The black spoons, though, experience a different brand of ambition. For them, it's more desperate, almost survivalistic. Psychologists often say that ambition driven by scarcity or lack can morph into a zero-sum game mentality. When you're fighting tooth and nail for something, you begin to see every competitor as an enemy, and collaboration goes out the window. This desperation can push them to do amazing things, but also means they're constantly teetering on the edge of burnout. You can see this play out in the show's challenges, where black spoons are often the risk takers because they literally can't afford to play it safe. Here's the weird part. Even though the black spoons hate being looked down on, there's a certain comfort in the underdog label. Humans, after all, are kind of wired to need categories. When life is complex, putting ourselves and others into boxes can be a way to cope. Social psychology has a term for this: social identity theory. The black spoons may despise being labeled as lower status, but they also cling to their identity as scrappy underdogs. They embrace the chip on their shoulder because, in a way, it gives them a narrative to follow, a motivation to keep pushing even when they're outmatched. In real life, we're guilty of this too. Think about how people latch onto being self-made or from the streets. There's value in seeing yourself as resilient, especially when that's the only identity you feel you can claim. For the black spoons, this identity becomes a badge of honor, and it fuels their ambition even as it traps them in a cycle of resentment against the white spoons. Watching the white spoons navigate the competition, you get an inside look at the fear of losing status. They're like the popular kids in high school who know they're going to be forgotten the minute they slip up. What's fascinating and honestly a little disturbing is how fragile their self-worth actually is. Psychologically, they embody what's known as contingent self-worth, where your self-esteem is so tightly bound to external achievements that any failure feels like a personal attack. You see this most with white spoon chefs who get visibly shaken when the judges even hint that they might lose to a black spoon. From a psychological lens, this creates a toxic environment of hyper-competitiveness, a state where personal validation is only achieved by proving oneself against others. This kind of mindset is a breeding ground for narcissistic traits where the need to be better than everyone else starts to erode genuine connection or empathy. The white spoon's attitudes towards the black spoons, often dismissive, sometimes downright condescending, aren't just arrogance. They're defenses built to protect a fragile ego from the reality that they too could lose. The show doesn't shy away from classism, and man, it's painful to watch. When you see the white spoon's privilege rubbed in the faces of the black spoons, it's a stark reminder of how brutal hierarchies can be. But from a psychological perspective, the impact of class-based judgment goes even deeper than just hurt feelings. Studies on class trauma reveal that people who've grown up or work within disadvantaged environments carry a heavier mental load. They're more likely to feel imposter syndrome, more likely to experience anxiety, and they generally have a more negative self-concept. In CCW, you see this play out as the black spoons not only struggle to match the white spoon's skill, but also to shake off the idea that they're less than them. It's a psychological battle just as much as it is a culinary one. The show cleverly uses food as a metaphor for this, challenging chefs to transform humble ingredients, things like Spam, instant noodles, and canned goods, into gourmet dishes, essentially challenging them to find dignity in the very things they've been taught to view as inferior. If you think about it, being in a show like CCW would probably wreck your mental health. Just look at how on edge everyone is by the end of the season. Constant competition, especially in a high-stakes environment, has well-documented psychological impacts from increased anxiety to burnout to a heightened sense of inadequacy. What makes this show even tougher for the contestants is that their self-worth is constantly being judged, both by experts and by the other contestants. It's a harsh setting that turns small setbacks into identity crisis. And here's the truth. We're all a little guilty of putting ourselves in competition with others in ways that aren't healthy. Social media, career ladders, and even relationships become fields for comparison, and while we're not battling it out in a Netflix kitchen, the psychological toll isn't that different. Watching CCW isn't just entertaining. It's almost like holding a mirror up to the darker parts of ambition, social hierarchy, and the need to prove ourselves. The chefs on this show, whether they know it or not, are embodying some of the most relatable human struggles: the fear of failure, the longing for validation, and the pain of feeling like we don't fit in the world we want to succeed in. At the end of the day, maybe we watch shows like this because deep down we're all kind of rooting for our inner black spoon, the part of us that's hungry, feels like it's an outsider, but still hopes for a breakthrough. And maybe, just maybe, seeing these chefs push through their own psychological struggles reminds us that we can too, even if we're just making ramen in our own kitchens. So here's the big question CCW leaves us with. In a world obsessed with success, what actually defines our self-worth? Are we defined by titles, awards, and status like the white spoons would argue, or is it the grit, resilience, and ambition of the black spoons that really matter? If you're like me, sometimes you wonder if all those late nights chasing something, whether it's career goals, personal ambitions, or even just impressing people who may never notice, are really worth it. CCW holds up a mirror to that inner struggle. Watching the white spoons cling to their status while the black spoons fight like their lives depend on it begs the question: are they chasing these things because they want them, or because they need the world to tell them they're good enough? We're all a little guilty of this, let's be honest. Sometimes we're basically the white spoons flexing on LinkedIn, and sometimes we're the black spoons hustling like it's our last shot. This question hits hard because it's easy to get sucked into the external chase. But if there's a takeaway from the black spoon struggle, it's this: the only validation that really sticks is the one we give ourselves. Every time a black spoon chef uses underdog status to fuel their creativity, or a white spoon starts to crack under the pressure of maintaining that status, it's a reminder that external markers, awards, titles, Michelin stars, can be the icing on the cake, but they're never the whole meal. It's what you bring to the table, even when no one's watching, that truly defines your worth. And that's where we all come in. Are we just chasing our dreams because they're truly ours, or because we're trying to prove something to someone else? So next time you're sweating over your own life goals, remember this: if the black spoons can bring their A game with some tofu and a dream, maybe we can tackle our own goals with a little less worry about what anyone else thinks. Because bro, at the end of the day, we're all just trying to cook up something meaningful. Titles be damned. In a world obsessed with status and credentials, CCW is a refreshing reminder that talent can come from anywhere and that ambition has no hierarchy. The white spoons represent a legacy built on opportunity, while the black spoons are proof that grit can rival privilege any day. So if you're looking for a show that's part cooking, part psychological thriller, and 100% binge-worthy, Culinary Class Wars is your go-to. And remember, in the name of social hierarchies, sometimes it's the hungry ones who end up eating the most. P.S. Chef Edward Lee and Triple Star are just both mwah, chef's kiss. Thanks everyone for watching this video. If you enjoyed what you saw, please don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more content like this. Also be sure to check out my other videos for more insight on other dramas and shows. Your support means a lot to me and it helps me grow this channel. If you have any thoughts, questions, or suggestions for future videos, please drop them in the comments down below. Again, thank you for watching this video and I'll see you next time.